Innovation, imagination, wonder. These are just some of the words used to describe Dr. Harvey Passes. Dr. Passes explores interesting people and ideas that will stimulate you. He questions the people who develop, create, and employ novel concepts in business and everyday lives. He especially loves to speak with successful people. How did they do it? How can you do it too? So let's join Dr. Harvey Passes in his quest of wonder and curiosity as we watch Dr. Harvey Passes Presents.
What do you do in your spare time? How do you handle those moments when you're just free from working and you just want to kind of like give in to some fun things and enjoy it? Well, you're going to meet someone today who actually left a big full career to jump into a love, a passion that he's had, and he's turned that into a career. What could be better than that? Man, could you imagine if I can get a career in eating chocolate? But that's another story. That's not what this gentleman did. This gentleman is an interesting person. His name is Steve Trachtman, and I'd like you to meet him, and then I'll tell you all about Steve and why he's got something that you should know about. Steve, great to see you again.
Good to see you.
Terrific. You're such an interesting guy. Let me
Thank
tell
you.
the people at home just a little bit about you, and they can appreciate what's happened to you and what you've done for years. Steve Trachtman, you functioned in the Wall Street area.
Yes.
Isn't that correct?
Yes.
So let me see.
Finance and technology.
Finance and technology for years. So, okay, but you became a full-time professional photographer in 2002,
right,
after having been a freelancer for the past 12 years before that.
Yep, while I was on Wall Street.
While you're on Wall Street.
Yep.
Okay. And those years as a freelancer, they took place while you had your business management and technology career on Wall Street and as a consultant. Now, it says a photographer since birth. That's why I said in my opening, you've always loved it.
Absolutely.
You didn't photograph on the way out, did you, when you were born?
No.
Okay, a little joke there. Okay, photographer since birth. Steve, you've always had a passion for photography, first as a hobbyist, then as a serious amateur, and now as a full-time professional.
Yes.
And I've seen you work, and it's great. Okay, so you studied photography and digital imaging, which I want to talk to you about, at the International Center of Photography in New York City, where you were also a teaching assistant in the digital media department using Photoshop, printing, scanning, etc. And your areas of photographic services are concentrated in, this is great, you know so much, in restoration, which is what we're going to talk about today also, which is digital imaging editing ranging from retouching to major reconstruction of pictures, portraiture and storytelling on location with individuals, families, social events, and weddings. Because I've seen the work that you do, and I like the way you say portraiture and storytelling, because when you open up your albums, a story is being told by the way you've looked at it and the way you've captured it, as opposed to, there's Uncle Mo cutting the holla, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
No. It's really very, very talented what you've done, very imaginative. Custom printing, which we're going to discuss, and commercial work, which we're going to discuss, and in coaching and tutoring, which is really great, which we're going to do a show one day on taking pictures, intraoral pictures and all that other kind of stuff, and fine art, which is great. And the people who've used you, the companies, it's like a who's who, like Fortune 500, as well as the Girl Scouts and other like Daily News, Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, U.S. Coast Guard, Navy, Cartier, goes on and on and on. Okay, so we've established the fact that you're a serious photographer.
Very serious.
Very serious.
Very serious.
Okay, so there's so much. I love photography. I'm just crazy about it. First, I'm going to hit you with a question. You made that dichotomy in your own introduction. What's the difference? You have photography and digital imaging. You know, I like to take pictures. I have a flair for it. I enjoy it, but I'm not in your league. I always thought they were the same thing, or is it the medium? Explain. Why did you break it up?
Well, it is the medium. And the difference between the film world and the digital world is that in the film world, the amateur, the professional, would take the pictures, and then they would take the film, bring it to a lab, and then the lab would process the film, produce prints, and so forth.
Right.
What the photographer did was take the pictures. Some photographers would have their own labs. Most did not. They could work in the lab, but they would give it off to someone else. Now, the image is captured as a digital file. Now it requires someone or a set of skills to then interpret that digital file.
Manipulate
it, and that manipulation starts right after the picture is taken, because there are formats in the camera. For example, you've heard of JPEG. Well, and there's another format, TIFF. Well, or RAW, that sort of thing. Well, depending upon what format the image was taken in, if you then want to produce a print, it has to be sized, it has to be changed. There's something called the palette that has to be adjusted. The palette is the same as in the good old days you could say, I want that kind of film or this kind of film, black and white film or color film, that sort of thing. Well, that's what the palette is. You can change the colors. And so all that now needs to be adjusted in a computer. And so, as we'll talk about when we touch on restoration, if somebody wants to change that rose to from red to yellow, you can do it digitally. So now the process of going from click to having a print means you have to go through a computer, and that's why I call it digital imaging, because it's a digital file.
So much to talk about. Don't be offended by this, what I'm about to say. I mean, you've got a lot to discuss. We're going to go a little bit into your background, but I want to get into the meat of this discussion.
Sure.
I mean, why did you make this career change from business going into art world and photography?
Well, it started when people started, friends, relatives, started asking. Let me hear it. Started asking me to take pictures for them. And it's more than a compliment. It's a mindset that one had to go through, and that is when someone asked me to take pictures of an event for them or their portrait, it was, okay, now I'm serving their needs. It's not when you're an amateur, when you're taking pictures for yourself, you satisfy yourself. Now I had the mindset, gee, I have to satisfy these people. So that started my thinking about doing this as a business. Circumstances led me to take photographs for some organizations because I happened to be there, happened to be interested in the subjects. When I was down on Wall Street, I was very close to various spots in New York Harbor, which allowed me to take pictures in New York Harbor.
Beautiful.
And so that blossomed very much in a part-time way. I was a senior manager in a securities firm, a couple of banks, and so forth. And there was very little time, but what little time I had, I was able to do this sort of thing. 9/11 happened. I witnessed the day, lost a very significant client as a result of this, and it became a time when I re-examined what I was doing and where I was doing it. And so most of my friends and family said, come on, you got to do your photography. And that's when I started doing photography full-time, professionally, in 2002, right after that.
And you took a stand and you went ahead and you acted on it.
Yes.
Good for you. Good for you. What are the pros and cons in using digital as opposed to photographic?
Well,
or film, I should say.
Yeah, film. Basically, the pros and the cons fall into 4 categories or 4 topics, and it applies equally to a professional as well as to an amateur. First off, the hardware, the equipment is different. So obviously there's a film camera and there's digital camera. Digital camera has, the sensor, that's what records the image. Film is recorded on film.
On film, yeah.
You then have the image on this chip. What do you do with it? Well, it then has to be downloaded to a computer, and so there's now software involved. And for those people who are purists, who like film because that's the way it's been done for a good number of years, that's fine. But in the digital world, once you have the file in the computer, you can then do all sorts of other things with it. Be it, you could call it manipulation, I like to call it editing. And so The pros and the cons is that the pro is that there's a lot more opportunity. You have an image that you can do a lot more with. Given the right hardware, given the right software, the right camera, it can be shared electronically, as people do today with putting it up on the internet or emailing it to friends and so forth. A lot easier to do than making up 6 prints at the drugstore.
Do you prefer using your digital imaging, I should say?
Yes.
You prefer that over film?
Absolutely.
I'm going to ask you another question for advice, which would be terrific for my viewer.
Sure.
But then from there, I want to get into a lot of other things with you here. What should someone look for if they're looking for a photographer? I mean, one of our camera people here was just telling us that, you know, how she's looking for a photographer and what was going on and all that. What should people look for? Give us some tips.
Okay.
How do you know you got the right person for you?
Well, I think very quickly when 2 people meet, there's chemistry or there's not.
Right.
Nothing fancy about that. It's human nature. That said, I think there's some key questions or points that the consumer should look for. One is, and perhaps foremost, is the style of the photographer. You know, when I was a teaching assistant at ICP, one of my colleagues who taught a class in photography would give an assignment to the class saying, I want you to go out and photograph a maple tree. 20 people in the class. And by the way, you're going to be graded and judged on this as a final grade. And most everyone, and this would happen semester after semester, would feel very uncomfortable about that. What do you mean? You want us to take a picture of the same tree? And the answer was, no 2 people will look at that tree and photograph it the same way.
Right.
So we all have different styles, different interpretations. The eye of the photographer is not only the eye, but in my view, it also relates to the letter I in imagination. So we use our skill and imagination to produce a product. So understanding and trying to get a sense of the style of the photographer is a very important part. Knowing that you can work with that person, the professionalism, the commitment to photography and the business is important. The businessman or the business approach of that person, are they willing to extend themselves to understand end to end what you as a consumer really want, what you're about, what makes you happy, and what would satisfy your needs. And then, of course, down the road are things like the products and services they produce, their pricing, and so forth. The whole issue of value is, of course, very subjective because it's a matter of balancing people's expectations with what something costs. And that's, you know, a topic for another day, certainly.
Right.
But that plays in people's minds. If they have particular expectations, I think it's important for them to articulate them as best as they can with the photographer. And if the photographer is worth their salt, they will pick up on that, ask the appropriate questions back, and really find what.
So the bottom line is, when you walk out, listen to your stomach.
Absolutely.
Listen to your stomach, it doesn't lie.
Yeah.
Let's jump into another area that we discussed earlier, and that's restorations.
Yes.
Many people have old prints, various things. As a matter of fact, one of our earlier shows today, you bumped into a gentleman from the Suffolk County Historical Society, and they were talking to you about the daguerreotypes.
Yes.
And about restoring them. Now, you do restorative work. Explain.
Yes.
What does restoration work mean? What does it entail?
Okay.
And where are your limitations? What can you not do? What can you do? And in here you have some examples.
Yes.
Just tell me and then I can hold them up
Okay.
as you want to use them.
Fine. I don't do furniture.
Don't do furniture.
Right.
Okay. Photographic restoration.
Photographic restoration. What's involved in photographic restoration is to first take a digital image of the print, or in some instances the film. I do work with film as well. That brings it into the computer. It's a digital representation of what we see. But there's a bit more to it, and that is the equipment that I use that are available in the professional arena is extremely sophisticated and able to see things that the human eye can't see. And so once it's brought into the computer, then using image editing software to enhance the image, which might mean bringing back the color. If it's faded, it might mean, in fact, bringing it back to black and white if it were a black and white image. It could be filling in the gaps, the tear, the piece that's missing. Mold, a very common problem is mold and discoloration that's taken place over time because many photos are, you know, in the shoebox in the closet,
right,
and not really kept in an archival way. Nor were some of the, as you'll see in this image here, the color that was used in the 1950s when
vastly different.
when we, you know, some time ago, is not holding up well now. And so in the image editing software is the opportunity to enhance that and bring it back to the way it was. In fact, I could even bring it back, or one can bring it back, to a better state than it was even when it was done.
It's interesting. It reminds me of the old black and whites that were colorized.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And colorize and do that.
And we do that for some people. There are many brides who like a black and white image of the two with the bouquet in color.
Right. I'll tell you, I am so impressed with what can be done today. It's just amazing. So we have some before and after shots here,
yeah.
I see.
Actually, the originals.
Let me show this black and white one.
Yeah.
Or whatever color it is.
Yeah, that's
shades of grayscale or something?
Yeah, it's black and white.
This is very interesting. So, you know, this is great. I'm going to hold this up to the camera. See if you can get this. Here's the original. And you can see when you see this picture, things are faded, things are washed out, the kind of blending. Is that the way the picture was originally, and that's what happened over the years? That's
what happened over time. And if you look at the woman on the right, no, your left, her dress has white.
This lady here?
No, the next, your left
this
hand.
Lady
yeah,
here?
yeah. The white that's in the middle of her dress, near the necklace.
Yeah.
That's all discoloration and tearing.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
so
that's
let's
not
see
a design.
Now. Okay, so here's what you were able to do. Now look how washed out it is. You can barely even see the faces.
Yes.
Okay, so now look at this shot, and you can get a chance and see how all of a sudden you can see, look at that. Is that amazing? Look at that. And I don't even think, was there pearls noted in the original?
Well, you couldn't see it because of the tear.
Right. Now you could, my God, you could have done anything. You could even put a mustache on it. You could do whatever you wanted. But it's amazing. Now it comes to life again.
Yes.
With what we can do. I think this is absolutely fantastic. But you have a picture here. This one here. Is this?
Yes.
What's
this was?
Oh, look at this.
Yes.
This
actually,
no.
what you have in your left hand
is the original.
Is the picture of the original, which was a pencil drawing.
This was a pencil drawing?
Pencil drawing, very artistically done in Greece, and it's about 75 years old. It was literally falling apart, as you might see from some of the edges of the paper.
This is a drawing, not an old photo.
Correct.
Amazing artistry.
Yes, yes.
Good
and
God.
It was falling apart, unfortunately, as you can see by some of the discoloration in the woman's dress. It had been exposed to water. I mean, actual, soaked.
No.
And what's in the next picture is a picture of the print that I created, which was 20 by 30. I mean, it was a very large print, but nevertheless bringing it back to life.
You can see it's more delineated, it's cleaner, it's clearer.
Yes, the mold is taken out, and in fact, comparing it to the original, there are parts that I had to redraw because the mold and discoloration just totally destroyed the image.
Thank you. Wow. Just this is a marvelous art form. So it's great. You go to work. It's not like you're going to work.
It's fun.
It is fun. Let's move on because you've got lots of things to show here, and I want to just get on now. You do so many. Oh, this is something I wanted to discuss. This is just absolutely fascinating right over here. This is great. Check this oil painting out. Tell me about this. First, we're going to say it's an oil painting.
Sure.
Okay. So now you see this picture here. Now, are we indeed looking at? I mean, it's on canvas.
Yes.
Anybody looking at this would say, "Wow, who painted that?" And you can say, "Oh, it was my son. He's 5 years old. He's a prodigy." But we know better. What exactly did you do? How did you get this kind of an image?
The first step the first step was to take the portrait. The second step was to do some editing. And the third, more significant step in this regard is printing it on canvas.
So
This is archival canvas.
So in other words, this canvas, this is a guess on my part, this canvas, before it's put on the frame,
Yes.
it goes through a printer of some sort.
Yes.
And you got your picture there, and then the printer just puts the picture right on this canvas. The canvas receives it.
Yes. Just
With
as
the
it,
ink.
Yes, just as it would a piece of paper.
And it prints it right out.
Yes.
But the canvas, it's still not like, well, is it stiff enough? It goes, obviously it worked, but is it like a sheet of paper?
It can be
that
either
you bend later?
It's either a sheet of paper or a roll. In this particular case, it was a roll that was cut to size. And then after it's mounted to the frame, it's sprayed with a lacquer.
Lacquer, I was about to say.
So as to preserve it. Now, the canvas itself, by the manufacturer's measurements, is supposed to be archival for 200 years. And
Tell them in
right.
200 years,
Yes,
hey,
exactly.
$199, I want my money back.
Exactly. As is the ink manufacturer saying the same.
Right.
I don't know why that's a popular number. Nevertheless, we do that to finish off the product, and then we take acrylic shellac and
Hand paint?
the shellac.
Clear, obviously.
Clear, yes. Over the image, basically simulating what an artist would do with a brush. And that gives it the light effect of being painted.
It's absolutely terrific. But I must say to you, you took this photo to begin with.
Yes.
The portraiture that you created is just phenomenal.
Thank you.
The whole setting, I mean, you really captured something very interesting in what you see.
Well, one thing about this as well, which perhaps is something that viewers should understand, this was done in a living room.
In someone's home.
Yeah.
And the backdrop, you curtain them up.
Brought it with
You brought it with you.
Yes.
So you did in their home.
The part of what
Keeping them comfortable.
yes is this was a favorite chair, very comfortable setting. One of the things that is now available to us is to bring the studio to the person, whether it's the work location or a favorite spot or wherever.
I do the same thing with dentistry. I tell the patient, as long as you have a sink to spit, I'll be able to work. I'll go to the kitchen, take out a fork and a knife. No, I'm only kidding.
There you go. I thought we had something in common.
I bring the dentistry to them. Okay, now how does all of this artwork differ? But before we do that, let's show this.
Sure.
Because this is just beautiful. First of all, you get a hernia lifting this book. So this is a new style.
Yes.
Of wedding.
Well, it's an album. It's a new style of album.
It tells a story.
That's right, and that's why it's called the storybook.
It's called the storybook. Okay,
Yes.
because what I see when I open this up, before we get into this, is that I see this is a wedding, obviously.
No, it's a debutante.
This was a debutante ball?
Yes.
Okay, so in this debutante ball, you see the gal, let me see if I can get this here. You're telling a story. Is she leaving? And
Yes, she's leaving her
home,
her
apartment?
building. Yes.
And then you see her getting her work done,
Her hair.
her hair done, etc.
And the next image
And over
is
here, she's getting a cleaning from the dentist. No, I'm only kidding. So now she's getting her eyes done and her makeup done, and now it's all of her clothing, her accessories.
Yes.
And you're telling a whole tale, and the pictures are beautiful. There she is getting dressed, and you could see her with I don't know who that guy is, but
her brother.
her brother, okay.
And the lady is her mom.
Yeah, lady's her mom, okay. And it's like a whole big ball when she's coming. I know I'm doing this thing quickly, but the pictures are just, they're really just breathtaking. They're just beautiful. And it tells a whole story. I love the way it's all put together. Am I correct? Did you do all this work digitally?
Yes.
It's amazing what you can do digitally.
As you see, there are many images in the background. Some of the images were black and white, some are in color. All of this is done through editing.
So you kind of fade the backdrop to give you a subliminal look,
Correct.
where then you have the clearer picture come forward,
Yes.
so you could focus on that while you still don't miss. Want to see something else?
Yes, I just want to make a
Go ahead.
point. You'll notice in the backdrop are the shoes.
Right?
And those are the shoes of the girls who were on the receiving line. I found that to be an interesting point because they're standing in this receiving line for
Barefoot.
a couple of hours, so they all kicked off their shoes. This is a pillar that's behind them, and so this was one of the inside interesting smiles
Oh, I get you.
that they knew
Right.
that, gee, there we were in our gowns, but we were barefoot.
Barefoot. Interesting. Interesting. So, okay, thank you. This is it's absolutely beautiful. My God, listen to this. Sounds like it's a tome. Amazing. So, some of the other things that you do, I see here, are commercial work.
Yes.
And I'm looking at, I mean, I love looking at catalogs with tools and parts and equipment, especially in dentistry. You got tons
Yes.
of catalogs.
Yes.
And all that. And I'm looking here. I mean, there's no way I'm going to show everybody this because it's too much. But everyone's seen catalogs, and on each page you have countless pieces of either of tools or screws or this or that. You photographed each one of those.
Yes.
And that took you like 2 years to do, or a year to do. That's just amazing. We have 3 minutes left.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Surely.
Among the many things that you do, and you also do fine artwork as well. Very quickly, can we get a close-up of the photo? And what are we looking at over here?
This is a beach in the Hamptons, and I call it surf sculpture. It's mounted on aluminum. This is super glossy print.
Oh, that's aluminum, did you say?
It's mounted on aluminum, yes.
Wow, interesting.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
It's absolutely breathtaking.
And this floats. It's a floating frame because the frame is behind the aluminum. And so it comes off from the wall, and the shadow around the image is the mat.
Beautiful.
That
Let's
is
see
an
if we can
image.
get this one over here now. We can get a picture of that with the last remaining moments that we have. I mean,
That's
that's fascinating.
That's
What
on
are we
museum.
looking at?
That's Cape Cod. It's a little pond, and it's printed on museum etching paper, so it gives it a more watercolor appearance.
Just beautiful. Look at it. It's fabulous. Only because of the time, I'm going quickly. Thank
Surely.
you. In 1 minute, what tips can you give young people today if they're interested and they want to go into photography? Because I know you do tutoring work,
Yes.
and you assist young photographers or even older ones.
Yes.
What can you say?
Well, I think the first thing to do is to be aware, to find images that you like, find the style or the kind of photography that you like, and try to copy it. Learn from others and experiment. Try things. And perhaps one of the most important things is to be patient. This is one of the things I tell especially adults who are interested in enhancing their photography. Don't grab the shot. Think about it. Compose it. Look at the light. Light is extremely important. After all, photography is
light.
painting with light. So understand the light. Take a deep breath before you go click, and think it through, because that's what imagination is. It's thinking through art.
Steve Trachtman, photographer extraordinaire, and you're in Manhasset.
That's correct. Thank
Excellent.
you.
Okay. Thank you very much for taking time to come down. I'm going to ask you to come down again, would you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
My
I learned
pleasure.
a lot from you today.
Thank
I
you.
love to say that when it's appropriate. And again, I've learned from you today, and it's the highest compliment I can give you.
Thank you. And
Terrific.
I always enjoy talking with you.
Well,
as well.
thanks very much, Steve. It's great. And I'm going to pick your brains on photography because I love it. We'll go over some other focused things next time. Terrific.
Great.
I hope you got a lot out of this. Photography is great, especially open up your mind to the digital world because there's really no limit whatsoever, right?
Right.
Okay, so Dr. Pass is saying we got to go. We're out of time. Like Steve Trachtman, whatever you do it with passion. Otherwise, what's the use? So long. Terrific,
Thank you.
Steve.